What's up, guys? How's everybody doing today? We all doing good? Nice. Sorry, I need my coffee. We're actually doing something really cool today. Today, we're making biscuits. I need biscuits, so we're making them. So here we go. A couple things you're gonna need to get started. You're gonna need whole wheat flour, baking powder. I'm gonna use pumpkin instead of butter, and then we're gonna use egg whites instead of milk. Focus is gonna still be lower calories, higher protein, and just all over better for you, but these should turn out really good, and I'm really excited about them. So let's get started. We're gonna do a decent sized batch, starting with 2 cups of this whole wheat flour right here. And these are going to be extremely low in fat. Just looking at what's going into them. When you replace the butter with the pumpkin, you really dial back a ton of calories. And even if you're not a fan of pumpkin, it's not gonna be the end of the world. It's 3 tablespoons, it's a very small amount. So you probably won't even be able to taste it. And once we get all these biscuits done, it's gonna go into other things like breakfast sandwiches, dinners, and stuff like that. So even if you're not a fan of pumpkin, still give these a try anyway. The next thing we're gonna need is 4 teaspoons of baking powder. So I grabbed the 1/2 teaspoon measuring cup, so this is gonna take forever. But here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we got that. And then the last dry ingredient we're going to use is a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We're going to get these in our bowl and then get them all mixed up before we add anything else. Just to kind of get the mix going. Nothing exciting so far, it's just whole wheat flour basically. But now what we're going to do is we're going to add our 3 tablespoons of pumpkin. Let me grab a fork just to even it out, make sure I don't want to overdo it. Now I'm not going to put it all in one spot. I'm going to drop little pieces of pumpkin here, pieces of pumpkin there, just to make it easier to mix. Spread it all out because this is acting like our butter, so this is going to be what thickens it up a bit. There we go. Perfect. We're going to go back to mixing this in, kind of kneading this all together. It's going to start to moisten our mix, and it's going to start to look kind of like crumbs. Or it might just make the pumpkin a little wet, but it is going to visibly change the texture as you're mixing it. Not a whole lot, just enough. And there we go. That is about as mixed in as this is getting. So we are good to move on to the next step. Pop open these liquid egg whites. these bad boys. And once we get this all mixed together, this is really going to give us that dough consistency that we're looking for. And then we'll be able to knead out our biscuits. Get them all portioned. Now, so far, we're trying to figure out the macros for these. I just added up all the ingredients. Once it's a giant ball of dough, and you go from there to making your biscuits, really it's just how many do you get? Do you want bigger, smaller? Are you going for really light? Are you going for big to make sandwiches? You know, it's really up to you at that point. Just know how much you started with, and then how many you break it to pieces you break it down into. And you're good from there. Now, I'm going to put a little bit of flour down on my work surface. Just to keep the dough from sticking to the table. It is a little wet because of the egg whites. That off to the side. Get out a nice ball of biscuit batter. Now, if it stays too wet and we need to add a little bit of flour, we'll just adjust the macros later on. But I tend to round up when I'm doing stuff like this and measuring. Just in case, I'd rather overcompensate for calories than undercompensate for them. So, okay, I think this would be better if we add a little more. So the dough is still, it's pretty wet, but it's coming together. You can see it is sticking to the table a little bit. But we're going to work this around. A little bit of flour, and then that's as much and as good as it's getting. Whatever we get with from here, we're just going to roll with. Again, the thing about making these healthy versions of stuff, it's sort of uncharted territory, and we're going for really close. We're not going to get a Pillsbury biscuit here, but we're going to get something that is delicious and a lot better for you. So now what we're going to do is we're going to spread it out, and we're actually going to start cutting our biscuits. So, oh, before we start doing that, I'm going to get the oven preheating. You're going to want to preheat it to 450. That's what we're going to cook these guys at. Now we're going to go through this process a couple times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a drinking glass about that big and just press it in to make our biscuits. I won't give it that. That does not want to give it up. There we go. So that seems to be the secret. Give it a little twist and it'll let your biscuit go. Take all that excess there. Off to the side, I do have a cookie sheet all ready to go. So we can just move these over, toss them in the oven when we're done mixing them all out. Extra, we are going to roll back into a ball. Again, a little more flour on the surface. And just keep going at it until we have all of our biscuit dough cut. I'm trying to eyeball it and make them all about the same length or thickness. That way, it'll be easy. If they're all about the same size, they're all about the same calorie content. So, those ones are coming up much easier. That's definitely helping. The extra flour on the table definitely helped. I think we can call that I used about an extra quarter of a cup. So when factoring into the overall calories, we'll just add an extra quarter cup to the total. So I don't know if you've been keeping count, but so far we've got 6 biscuits out of this. And this is going to just be the last one. So all in all, this made us a total of 7 biscuits. Which is not bad, since in total, that whole amount of dough had 180 carbs, so breaking it down, not real terrible. It's, again, whole wheat flour, pumpkin, eggs. The protein count is going to be really high on these compared to most biscuits, so I'm going to go ahead and throw these in the oven, and it takes about 10 to 12 minutes to cook, so we will come back in a couple minutes and see how they're doing.